I'm David Taylor Balls, and this year I'm the chairman of the Bures and District Agricultural Club. And this is my second year in office, and this is the golden jubilee year of the club. The club was formed in 1943, and it's progressed steadily from there. At the moment we have a full committee, myself as chairman, and our vice chairman is Mr. Lewis Campton. Our treasurer is Mrs. Joan Kreisel. They both live in the Leavenheath district. Our honorary secretary is Mr. Richard Lucking from Elms Farm, Mount Bures. And on the committee we have Mr. Colin Cracknell, Mr. John Ingram, Mr. John Munson, Mr. Roy Andrews, Mr. John Morton, and Mr. Jim Hasty. Actually, I've got one of the committee members with me this evening to introduce this video, and I've got Colin Cracknell with me. And Colin, perhaps you could lend us or lead us into this little film with your account of how the club started in those years. We've got the minutes book in front of us, which relates to all the different meetings and programs which were arranged in those days. And as you know, your father's name is in here, so perhaps you could give us a little insight and lead us on from here.
Yes, well, David, indeed, I'll do my best. Of course, 50 years back, one's memories do tend to get a little bit vague on certain names, certain faces. But I do, in fact, remember very well indeed this club being formed. My father was, as you just said, one of the people who helped to form it. It was done really through the local War Agricultural Committee. And Father being a member of that committee, I suppose, probably was one of the reasons that he got somewhat involved. We have a list there, in fact, of the different people who formed it. Yeah. Now, I don't know whether we could just browse through that, see exactly who they were. I know there was a Mr. Manfred Hitchcock. And
he was the chairman, I think, wasn't he, Colin?
He was the chairman. He was, in fact, of course, the owner of a very well-known local mill. And although not directly involved in agriculture in the sense that he was not a farmer, but of course very, very much connected.
Indeed, yeah.
And indeed, as I remember, through the use of his office and facilities which he was able to offer at the mill, all the printing and a tremendous amount of secretarial work of one sort and another was in fact done there for many, many years, in fact up to quite recently.
Yes, indeed, Colin. Looking down here, the temporary committee was formed on the 15th of November in 1943. I think it would be nice to record the names of the committee members who were present on that occasion.
I would agree with that entirely, yes.
Actually, the temporary committee, I'm sure you would recall their families if you can't recall who they were. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. A.J. and Mrs. Batten, well, they were farming at, was it Grove Farm?
Wissington Grove.
Wissington Grove.
Yes, and in fact, their daughter, Margaret, is still a member, and an active member of the club.
Very much so.
And their son, Francis, he was chairman on numerous occasions, and he'd done a tremendous amount towards keeping this club going, because unfortunately Mr. Batten Sr. died as a comparatively young man and wasn't able to be involved in it in many years, but his son and the whole family have carried on and done a tremendous amount for it.
And then there's a Mr. H.A. Doe. Would that be relations to Ernest Doe and Sons?
Yes, there is a distant relationship. I believe it was Horace Doe, who lives at Jenny's, I think it is.
Yes. And then there's Miss Gore.
Yes, indeed. She was a very well-known local lady farmer.
Indeed.
He was out of the district many years ago.
But did Yeah, did she move over to Thorrington Street at Stoke-on-Halen because there was a Miss Gore living in one of the houses there? I wondered if that was the same Miss Gore.
Maybe. I know she farmed at Peacock Hall, Cornard, and I know my father used to meet her at various NFU meetings and that sort of thing. A very, very well-respected woman for her judgment in agriculture. Yes.
And then there was Mr. Cracknell, which presumably was your father, so he was a founder member. Yeah. And Mr. Gordon Webber. Well, Gordon is still alive today.
Oh, indeed, very much so, yes. Although he's in retirement, he only retired a matter of, 4 years ago. And he's done a tremendous amount for this club. He was secretary for quite a long time, and indeed the furrow drawing match that was held on his land adjacent to the Colchester Bures Road on many occasions. Gordon, yes, has been a very, very good friend of this club, and we are still delighted, aren't we, to see him at some meetings.
Very much so, yes. Yeah. And then there was a Mr. and Mrs. Hitchcock and a Mr. Wellham from Great Cornard.
Yes.
It's interesting to note, actually, that this meeting took place at the Mill House. And the reason why it took place at the Mill House, presumably, was the home of Mr. Manfred Hitchcock. The meeting took place there because there were no other dwellings, or what is that word, Colin?
I don't know. They didn't write too well, did they?
The chairman doesn't write too well today, I must admit.
But I suppose, of course, the reason must have been that indeed when you start any organisation, you've got to start from scratch.
Indeed, and during the war years, which it was then,
right,
1943, I suppose accommodation for meetings and bits and pieces was restricted.
Well, let's face it, David, yes, those early meetings were held at a private house.
Yes.
Then the committee meetings developed as the club got established so that they were held in a public hall. But in recent years, and I think very fortunately, once again, we've reverted back to the idea of going to people's houses. Much more comfortable.
Indeed, very much
yes.
So. Yeah, that
gives a more personal contact, I think, amongst the committee and helps you sort things out.
It does indeed. But do we really ought to run through the rules as they were
That's right.
On that inaugural meeting, shall I say, on the rules of the club for 1943?
Yeah.
Shall I just run through them?
Yes, do. Yes. Because I believe, in fact, they are still exactly the same at this present day, if my memory is correct.
Well, look,
you agree with that?
Yeah, indeed. It says the club, the rule number 1, the club is to be known as the Bures Agricultural Club. Number 2, membership shall be open to all interested in agriculture, which is interesting. Number 3, the annual subscription to be 2 shillings per member, payable at the beginning of the club year. Regrettably, we haven't been able to contain the subscriptions at 2 shillings, but they've gone up in 1993 to a mere £5, but it's still
one feature there, though, I think has helped us tremendously as times passed, because obviously this club was started to try and improve methods in agriculture. It was educational.
That was originally,
yes.
That was the formation of the club.
Now, I mean, that rule that anybody interested in agriculture meant anybody interested in the countryside, and in recent years with less and less people being involved in agriculture, that has allowed us to keep our membership up and keep the club alive, because anybody who says, well, I'm interested in the countryside, and now of course we touch on all aspects, travel, nature, you name it, as well as some truly agricultural stuff. I think that's given us an excellent loophole to carry on as we do.
Oh, I'm sure you're right. Yes. Yeah, but I mean, there was different activities organised in those days, visits to Cambridge to look at the new techniques of growing the grain, and a veterinary surgeon came along to one meeting and explained different new techniques which were then available.
That's right.
And
what are the other rules, David, before you put the paint?
Oh, the other rules?
Yes.
Where are we now? Annual meetings for elections and committee to be held once a year. Interested members may be allowed as a guest, meaning they could come along as a guest of one of the members for one meeting, and if they wanted to join, if they liked the atmosphere of the club, then they had the opportunity of becoming a member.
That's right.
That was rule number 5. Number 6, a special meeting was called at the request of not less than 25% of the members, which still persists today.
I've never known that to happen before.
No. And it says here, which is interesting actually, for the duration of the war years, membership is confined to within 6 miles of the parish of Bures. Now, why do you think that was? Was it a restriction on mileage for the petrol? Or
I would imagine that must have been connected with rules and regulations relating to the consumption of petrol. You see, of course, at that time, one was not allowed to use any petrol for private purposes whatsoever. It had to be business entirely, and I would imagine that this acted as an attraction for people to join this club because it was educational and legally you could take your car and use petrol for it. But yes, I would think that rule was to put some form of restriction on it to comply with ministry rules and regulations.
That would be during the time when the car headlights had to be blacked out.
Oh dear, oh yes, yes. Driving half by yes, put it that way.
That's right, yeah, and I can remember my father fitting a sort of cover over the headlights actually, so he sort of got a reduced glow above and just a glimmer on the road, just enough to see where you were going. So obviously that they didn't encourage too much driving at night in those particular days. The ordinary meetings begin at 7:30 and finish no later than 10 as Rule 8. And number 9, I think one of the most important ones, is party politics to be out of order, which I think is a wonderful rule.
Yes, and indeed, there again, I can't remember any occasions whatsoever where any chairman has had to intervene a meeting to implement that rule.
Well, let's hope let's hope that continue whilst I'm taking the chair.
Anyhow, I think it's proved over the years that we've never had to change those rules, that they were well thought out.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's set the old club in good stead for all over, for 50 years.
That's right, yes.
And then we go on to actually the first furrow drawing match, which is of great interest actually. I don't know who the instigator was, but on January the 14th in 1943, there was another committee meeting held by Mr. Hitchcock was present. He was in the chair as Manfred Hitchcock was the chairman. Mr. and Mrs. Batten and Mr. Cracknell, Mr. Doe and Miss Gore and Mr. Hitchcock and Gordon Webber and Mr. Wellman was there again. That was in 43.
The secretary at that day, can we see a signature there? Would it have been Mr. Peter Pettit?
No, Colin,
you can't actually see. We can't see. No, there's just the chairman signed.
The chairman signed the minutes, isn't it?
Yes, because I know that a neighbouring farmer to us, a young man, he was one of the early secretaries, and then indeed, of course, Gordon Webber took over for many years and made an excellent job and really got the club, or helped get the club going.
Yes. Well, there are some other names here. Reverend Clibben, would that be old Canon?
Yes, well, that was a quiz. That was a question master.
He was the question master, yes.
Yes, he was from Nayland, I believe.
Or Stoke by Nayland. I remember my wife, who was born at Nayland, I can remember her talking about Canon Clibben, and apparently he was a dear old boy. There was Messrs. G. Crystal. Can you remember?
No, I remember the name, but I can't remember the man.
And a J. Johnson?
No.
H. Rhodes?
H. Rhodes, yes, he was a well-known farmer at Bournemouth.
He was.
Raffle was from Cockfield, wasn't he? Ken Rush was from Melford.
Yes.
And Sace.
Is it Sace or Say?
No.
Looked like Sace.
Sace. I don't remember him. No.
Well, you sort of...
But as I said earlier on, David, this is nearly 50 years.
I know, Colin, I know. But you see, you've had more earlier connections with the club than myself,
yes.
because I didn't have much to do with the club prior to the 60s.
Yeah, well, you've been in it about 25 years, haven't you, David?
Yes.
And as I gathered by the way you've talked in the past to me, that, for the want of a better phrase, shall I say, you came along as a guest, you showed some interest, and you drifted in. You got taken by the club boat, shall we say. Where's it got you? Never mind.
That's very true. But we must lead on, Colin,
That's right,
to the
yeah.
ploughing match,
Yes.
because this is what we're sort of heading for. And the first furrow drawing match, as we come to be known, as it's become to be known, furrow drawing match and produce show,
yes.
for the Bures and District Agricultural Club. It was due to have started in September 1945. What the reasons were why it was postponed until October 1945, I don't know, and I can't find anyone that does.
No, I can't remember either.
But interestingly enough,
I was to at that time a regular attendant.
Yes.
Because prior to that I had been away on another farm serving an apprenticeship, and
yes.
indeed only occasionally came to the club when I had to be at home, but I was back home at the beginning of 45 and immediately started attending the club regularly, but I can't remember why that match was postponed. It must have been weather, I would imagine, possibly a very late harvest. You see, let's face it, look at the harvesting methods.
Indeed.
It was still cut and thrash.
That's right.
And I would imagine we must have had somewhat of an indifferent harvest, and it had to be postponed for a few days, a few weeks.
Well, yeah,
for that reason.
As you say, that things were totally different then 50 years ago.
Look here, look. Horses to be lent by Mr. J. Garrett, Mr. Warden, and Mrs. Batten.
Yes.
I think there are 3 classes for horses, look.
Yeah.
2 for tractors, which in fact were loaned by the local agricultural committee.
Yeah. Which
wasn't an abundance of spare tractors on the farms at that time, as you see.
Yeah, so most of the furrow drawn classes then were mainly for the horses.
Yeah.
And no doubt there was great rivalry between the old horsemen in those days.
Yes.
Not so much with the tractor drivers today, because I mean it's just a matter with a high-powered tractor or reversible plough picking the straightest hedge, and away you go and hope for a fairly good result.
Yeah.
But fascinating to recall that.
Well, it's quite interesting there, of course, that there were those number of horse classes. It was pretty obvious because myself as obviously one of the younger members, because at that time I was about 17,
Yes.
and then we were sort of the generation that were the tractor hands. People that were only a few years older had either changed from horses to tractors, and we always thought, as younger ones, right or wrong, that we were better tractor drivers than the ones that had come off horses. I don't know, they probably wouldn't have agreed, but indeed, yes, of course, the horse drawing really took on. But thinking back over the years, I mean, we haven't had horses now to draw for many, many years.
No, we didn't.
And they were gradually phased out because I was on the committee, as we shall probably find later on, and so I remember the comments at the committee meetings, and I remember extremely well that the number of horse classes got reduced down to 1.
They did, yes.
And,
so we changed over to the tractors.
That's right, the tractors got increased, and I remember very well what finally ended, shall we say, the horse furrow drawing era was that we had one pair of horses there, and one man from Bures, a very well respected and highly skilled retired farm worker. He had been a horseman all his life. He nearly had an accident on the field. I witnessed it myself.
You did.
And indeed, of course, the trouble was the horses then weren't being worked. They were full of steam, for the want of a better word.
Indeed.
And of course, this man was elderly, and a combination of those two factors did nearly lead to an accident. It was only his extreme skill that did save an accident, and on the committee we said then, look, we think we must take this as a warning and stop this chaos.
Yes.
Another thing that comes in there too, you'll find as we browse on through the furrow drawing matches, of course, the crawler tractor. The crawler tractor came in, and I mean, just after the war, there were quite a large number of them on the farms when one had to farrow 5Fs, the counties and that sort of thing. And we had a crawler class for several years, and that was very popular. But of course there again, excuse me, there again, that died a natural death as they gradually went off the farms, and so that was phased out after a number of years, which shows another one of the changes that we've seen through the life of the club.
That's right, yeah. And looking down here, Colin, it says tractors and horses to be loaned by J. Cracknell Esquire, obviously your father.
Yes.
And Messrs. Wilson Brothers. Can you remember the Wilson Brothers? Where did they farm?
Yes, they're our next door neighbours, and in fact, of course, you know Roger Wilson.
I know Roger very well.
And that's his father and uncle.
Good gracious.
He has taken over their farm, of course.
He has. Was Roger Wilson ever the chair? Did he take the chairman's?
No, Roger has never actually been on the committee.
I
think he's
sensible chap, I might add.
He's a very keen supporter of the club.
I know, very much so.
But he's never got involved actually with the running of it. He comes up with suggestions, of course, we all know at the AGM, but sensible people like to do.
Indeed, yeah. Fascinating again that it was decided to give the men in charge of the ploughs 10 shillings each. It was unanimously decided to ask F. Knott.
Frank Knott. Oh, yes. Yes. Very well-known local farmer.
He was. Yes. Where did he farm?
Oh, he farmed actually at Wickham St Paul's.
He did, yes. Yeah. And he was asked to give the prizes. And the prize went to, was it Messrs. A. Rowe?
Albert Rowe. Yes,
Rowe.
He was a local thrashing contractor.
He was, yeah. H. Rhodes.
Yes, he was a local farmer.
And C. Day.
Cully Day. Yes, he was another local farmer. They were the stickers, look, Dave.
Oh, yes, I beg your pardon.
Yes. That's what they were the sticking team.
Oh, yeah.
To measure the furrows.
They had to measure the furrows to see who got the straightest one on the day.
That's right.
Yes. And the plough stewards, horse classes, Mr. Pod, who...
Oh, yes, there again, yes. Another neighbour of ours. Father must have wrote him in, I think.
Yeah. Was Mr. Pod ever secretary of the club?
No. In fact, I think he was just asked to come along as a steward, because I don't ever remember him actually being a member. In fact, he would have been rather too elderly to be a member.
Yes.
Because he retired at the outbreak of war. So,
yes. And there's A. Steele's name mentioned on numerous occasions.
Yes, well, of course, was a very good old friend of all of us. Still a keen member of the club, isn't he?
Yeah, well, Alan, presume it's Alan.
That is Alan.
Oh, yes, it's Alan Steele.
Yes.
And he farmed at, what's the name of the farm? Assington.
That's right. Yes.
I can't remember the name of the farm now, but his daughter actually has taken over.
The son-in-law running there, don't they? But Alan, of course, he has been one of the very, very keen members. He's done a tremendous amount for the club on the committee in the earlier years, and he's had the furrow drawing match and that on his farm on many occasions. His son-in-law is still carrying on in the same way, and he's offered the facilities, and in all, yes, a man that has done a tremendous amount. We're pleased that he still gets to nearly all the meetings.
Well, it's nice to record, Colin, that there are still several of the farming families who started the old club off their families are still in existence today and still take a great deal of interest in the club.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah,
Yes. I mean, there's Wilson's that we've just mentioned. There's Alan still. I mean, his son-in-law, he comes along. He's a keen member.
Yes.
I hope we shall see his grandchildren there, although they're not quite old enough as yet. And in my own case, my own son comes along. Yes, there are quite a number of families that are carrying on. Of course, inevitably, some families have, shall I say, more or less gone away from the club for one reason or another. I mean, one family that comes to mind is the Ashbys. You remember the Ashbys?
I know the name, Colin, but I can't.
You remember Ted Ashby? He used to be at Wakes Cone. He died several years ago. Well, he was a chairman on several occasions, and his daughter Kathleen, she was quite a keen member and was indeed secretary for several years. Yes. I think she was secretary to my father, or with my father as chairman, on a number of occasions. Yes.
You say your father was chairman. When did he take over then? I tried to track all the chairman down, but it's very difficult. Can you remember when your father took over?
I can't remember the first year he was chairman, but I think it was quite early on in the club. I mean, he's one here, look, but there's no year decided. August the 10th, President Colin Cracknell, chairman.
Yes.
I don't know which year that is now.
That's 46.
Oh, 46, yes. Well, that probably sounds about right, because Manfred Hitchcock was chairman, at least when the club started, wasn't he?
Yes.
And what would have been 2 or 3 years, maybe somebody in between. No, I can't say.
Yeah, then in August 46, they're then bringing, interesting enough, there's one class for the Caterpillar tractors.
There we are, yes.
Yeah, and 2 class for the Fordson tractors, one for the professionals and one for the amateur and ladies.
Yes.
Then we've got 3 tractors and just 2 horse classes then. Look, so slowly it's
slowly
changing over.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
But anyway,
so note here too, look, where the meetings were held.
Oh yes.
Victory Hall, Bures. They were held there for quite a number of years. Not perhaps an ideal place in that it was in fact an old First World War army hut, but quite nice. But we did move. Now I think the reason was that the Victory Hall was rather large, and the club with probably, I guess, 40, 50 people at most meetings were rather lost in there, and the Victory Hall was slightly smaller. The WI Hall, where we went to, nice brick building, slightly smaller, well heated, and indeed it had got stage and everything in it, and that was a very, very good place to meet, and we met there for many years.
Yes, but looking back to in the autumn of 1946, it appeared that they held a dance at the Victory Hall, Bures. The admission was 2 shillings and 6pence. And what else did they have? Coffee to be served by Miss Batten, and the door stewards and Mrs. Butcher, or Mr. Butcher rather.
Yes, that was Vic Butcher. Yes, he's still alive, of course, and he was another very early member and a keen supporter. He farmed at Hassington for many years.
Yes, prize money to be collected from the farmers and traders. So they were begging in those days, as we have to now, I'm afraid.
Yes.
The proceeds to be divided between St Leonard's Hospital and the Bures Agricultural Club, and the Honourary Secretary was instructed to write to C.J.N. Rowe and Sons, which would be the insurance brokers of Long Milford, and they're still going strong today.
Oh, indeed, yeah.
Yeah, so that I know several of the old boys from C.J.N. Rowe, Geoffrey Jackson and Stanley Hall. Sadly, Stanley has passed on now, but Geoffrey Jackson is still going strong and still. Well, I maintain holding rows together, which is a great interest.
Yeah, I don't know any of them there. I never have. We've never done business with them. We've always insured elsewhere.
Yes.
Just, for no other reason than just we were happy when we were.
Yeah, but
anyhow, it's interesting to see see they were there.
Wonderful old brokers.
That's right. And
Yes. So,
yes, well, you can see how the club, we can see how the club has gradually sort of got into being. In now, what, 4 or 5 years. As we go on now, you've turned the page over, look, you've jumped a bit.
Yeah.
1951. And they are one meeting, they decided to ask a veterinary surgeon to come along and arrange and talk and answer members' questions. You see, it's still on very, very much of an agricultural thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, instructional again, and so that went on. But we did have the social side, but the social evening decided to hold the social evening January the 12th, 52, and made further arrangements later.
Your father was chairman then?
That's right, he was, yeah.
Yes.
He must have liked the job.
Well, let's put it this way, Colin. He was probably blessed with a jolly good committee, as I am today, and that's
and they're very sad, and that makes all the difference.
It does indeed. That I found it to be a wonderful club to be with and to progress with, shall we say.
Now, commenting on social evenings, David, I don't know whether you remember, but they went down very well, and indeed shows how costs have changed. We were, for many years, able to hire a full entertainment group to come along and give a full stage entertainment for the whole evening,
yes,
as well as a meal. And the club afforded that quite easily. And I know it went on for many years. There was a group came from Cambridge for several years.
Yes.
And everybody thoroughly enjoyed it. But, of course, what happened? Costs went up, and indeed, finally we had to face it out. It was a shame, but equally I know we all enjoy the present dinner. But that's another change that we've seen over the period.
Indeed. Well, looking back to the proceeds from the ploughing match held in 1951, they made a profit of £24, 15 shillings and twopence, which was, fascinating.
That's right.
When did we change over to the decimal money? Can you remember? Because I can't. But it makes much more interesting reading. £24, 15 shillings and 2 pence.
Yes, I wonder how the value of the pence changed now to interpret that into the profits that we get now.
Yes.
From the match. Although we always feel happy about what we get from it, there's enough to keep the club going, which is all we want.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that in 51 again, that there was a show report in June, July with farm walks, in September was the ploughing match as usual, on October the world food situation. Presumably that was a talk by an economist, yes. And there was a talk on tillage and a talk by the police on agricultural law.
Yeah. So, well, now you see, I suppose that indicates now, of course, we were getting well away from the wartime period where really there wasn't any such thing as the police being involved in agricultural law. You just got on and produced food how you could. But I suppose rules and regulations were gradually creeping in more.
Yes.
And it'd be interesting to have known what was said about the world food situation by whoever the economist was that came along at that time. I bet it was something different to what we should be told now.
I don't suppose there was any shortages reported at that particular meeting.
Well, they weren't grumbling about the stores being full, I guess. Anyhow, we must press on because we've got a long way to go through here. And, we mustn't make this too long, must we?
Where are we? 52, and that looks as if that's where we change over from one to the other.
Yes.
So perhaps that would be a suitable time, Colin, to close the chapter, shall we say, on the...
well, there's one thing that's interesting there. Look, V.A. Butcher.
Oh, yes,
Vic Butcher was chairman.
Yes.
Now, so happens that Vic's farm was very, very near to Alan Steele's, and indeed, of course, quite near to where we are now, proposing to have the furrow match this year at Lewis Campbell's farm, just along the road. How we stick to the same areas.
Yeah, indeed. I can remember Vic Butcher living at that little farm at Assington. It was near the actual roundhouse along the Assington can't remember the name of the farm, but I was living and working at Brunnings Farm. Oh no, I was working at Brunnings Farm. I didn't get married and live at Brunnings Farm until 57, but in I think it was late 50s. Poor old Vic was living in this particular house, a little thatched cottage, beautiful little place. We went back to Lavenham for lunch because my father or the family was living at Washington Green, Lavenham. We went home for lunch and coming back to Brunnings Farm at Nayland again. Poor old Vic had an American Super Sabre jet fighter crash in the farmyard, destroyed everything in the farmyard and set fire to the house and burnt the whole house down.
Remember it well.
Yeah, and it was totally devastating, it really was.
Yes.
But that's what happened in those years, and since then, well, we've progressed. If it's progress, shall we say?
That's right, well, you'll see when we get further on in the programme to the details of the actual furrow drawing match and that sort of thing, that there is a big change. I mean, we're now talking about showing some of the things that we used here as furrow drawing tractors, and that they're now there this year as vintage.
That's right, indeed.
Carefully preserved and that sort of thing. And also, of course, any horses that may turn up now are a real attraction, a real novelty and a rarity for the public to see. What a change over 50 years.
Indeed.
But isn't it fortunate that this club has been able to keep going and maintain its attendance? Our attendance numbers, I believe, now still run an average somewhere, what, 35 to 45?
Yeah, per meeting.
Yes, which...
But there are over 60 paid-up members in the club at the moment, so it's a wonderful thing. And let's hope that it will keep going along those lines and just keep getting stronger as we go along.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know we're, of course, meeting at a different hall now because, unfortunately, several years ago, the Women's Institute Hall that I referred to as our meeting point earlier on was sold, and of course we lost the use of it. It was converted, I think, into a private house, but we've been very fortunate that we've had the use of the Mount Villas Village Hall. There again, a very nice meeting place, very comfortable, and I hope that most, if not all, the members are happy there. Certainly I am. I guess you are, don't you?
Indeed, yeah. It's been very successful.
Should encourage people to keep the thing going for many, many years as yet.
Yeah, let's consider that so. Yeah. Looking down here, I discovered there's an Elliot's name. Can you remember the Elliot family, John? Colin and Alton John?
Yes. Now, Mr. Elliot, Mr. Over. I'm just trying to read it. Anyhow, yes, I think that would refer to John and David Elliot's uncle.
Uncle, yes.
Yes, Mr. Harold Elliot. And
did he farm in the area then?
Yes, yes, they farmed at Grogan. There was him, his two brothers, and his two nephews. Yes. Now, of course, we both know the two nephews very well. They had been keen members for many, many years. They were like myself. They started there as lads.
Yes.
And have kept it up ever since. And yes, I think there's very few meetings go for we don't see one, and if not both the Elliots there. And occasionally John's son comes along. And I don't doubt that they'll be doing as they always have done, participating in the furrow drawing event, either stewards, stickers, or something of that sort. Oh yes, that's a family that supported the club very well the whole way through. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's jolly good, Colin. Yeah. And as I say, this being our 50th year for the club, the golden jubilee year, shall we say? That it's nice to think that we can still recall some of the old family names, and things are still going along fairly steadily.
Yes, indeed, we could carry on talking, David. an endless amount of time on this subject. There is so much material, so much interesting material if one browsed right through this book and kept on bringing back thoughts. But at least I personally have brought back the memories that I have that stick out most in my mind about the club, particularly in its earlier days, and indeed you've brought out a lot of what's happened in slightly more recent years.
Yes.
And all we can say is, or I can say to you, as a member of your committee, you've made a good job of acting as chairman last year, and again so far this year. It's a pleasure for all of us to work under you, and you've made the club certainly go ahead in that period, and I don't see any reason why whoever takes over from you shouldn't be able to do and keep the thing going.
That's kind of you to say that, Colin, but the past chairman has set such a high standard that the new chairmans coming along have to try and keep those standards going, and that's what I've tried to do, and I'm sure our future chairman will do the same.
That's right.
And keep the club going.
50 years, that explains it all.
It does indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, Frank, let's hear it.
No bird. Oh. Oh.
What a lovely afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much indeed. Second year I've been chairman, the second year there's rain. We change the chairman next year, a snow. So you're going to make the most of it whilst you're here. Anyway, it's time we drew the raffle. So we know you've all got tickets, so get your numbers ready because I shall go through these like a dose of salts.
You want no tickets?
Vivian, are you ready?
Yeah.
The first one is a yellow number 2. Hooray! We have a taker. Yellow number 2. This surprise is out bidding or not? Are they supposed to collect the bits and pieces now?
Yes, yes.
We need a number 2, which is the box over the other side, Cyril.
No, number 1. That's what they have. Say number 1. Prize number 1.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Oh, well.
Oh,
That looks
that's better than a box of chocolates anyway.
No, Laura, you haven't, because Joan said whatever you do, don't lose the end.
Another yellow ticket, number 30. Yellow ticket, number 30.
Do well, then.
And a blue ticket, 83. You've got That's not 1 or 2. Ladies and presentation Secretary Mr. Richard Lucking. Thank you, Richard.
Must be joking.
And does Mary's got to come up the front to present these
Well, you
trophies.
can introduce her.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I introduce Mrs. Mary Campen, our hostess for this afternoon. Without her most generous help, we wouldn't be here, actually, because she rules poor old Lewis and whatever. We just ignore old Lewis. Mary says, go ahead, David, and do what you like. Anyway, we'll ask Mary to present the prizes. Thank you, Mary.
The turkey is still alive, so we'll leave it aside. I'll do the sideshows first, because there's only 3. The pig pelting for a Munson turkey. The highest score was 130. Selina White. We have a phone number, if she's not here. Right. Did you want somebody to pluck it for you? We'll put you in touch with the producers afterwards so you can decide when and how you want it. Guess the weight of the cake. The cake weighed £2.14, and exactly right was Liz Ingram. Well done. Jolly good. She here.
Shall I take it? She's
Yeah.
gone.
Can you hand her through this? The number of sweets in the jar, the total was 419, and the nearest with 410 was Stephen Smith. Well done, Stephen. Stephen! There's only 399 now. Going down rapidly.
I'll take it for him.
Yes, my dear. Yes, please. Thank you very much.
I want that for my files at the end. Right, where are we? Hang on. The Fiat Agri Cup for the best trade stand went to Bal Fuel Co. Well done. You stand up here. Push these young ladies back a little bit, and then I'll pass them. The Pan Anglia Shield for the best demonstration this afternoon went to P. Tuffle Limited.
David, you're right in my way.
Sorry.
Is there anyone from Tuffle still here?
Push go along a little bit further.
Right, we'll...
Which is the next one, Richard?
Yeah. We'll do the vintage tractor display, DJ.
This one?
The first prize in the vintage tractor display with a 1923 Model F Fordson went to D. Hunt.
Well done. Well done.
Second prize with a 1948 David Brown Cropmaster, Ralph Eagle. Third prize prize with a 1932 Case C G Ewers. Well done. Stationary engines. First prize with a hardtop M 1930 John Southall. Second prize with a cable prototype ex-Halstead C. Cracknell. Third prize with a Ruston Hornsby D. Clark.
He's not here, I'll take it home.
Yeah, righto, thanks. The vintage ploughing.
Which one's that?
First prize and the Ken Turner Cup goes to F.B. Pring.
Well done. Thank you. Oh boy.
Thanks very much.
Second prize to G. Ewers. And third prize to B. Game.
Well done, Brian.
Thank you.
The furrow drawing match. First open forward. The first prize with a deviation of 1 inch, J. King. Second prize with a deviation of 1 5/8 of an inch, R. Dye. Third prize with a deviation of 1 7/8 of an inch, V. Lambert.
Well done.
Class 1B. The Open Massey Ferguson. First prize with a deviation of 3/8 of an inch, R. Dye.
Well done.
Second prize with a deviation of 1/2 an inch, R. Dye. Third prize with a deviation of 5/8 of an inch, R. Holder. The Open International Harvester, first prize with a deviation of 1/2 an inch, C. Morphew. Second prize with a deviation of 1 1/8 of an inch, R. Holder. Third prize with a deviation of 1 1/2 inch, R. Dye. The Open John Deere, first prize with a deviation of 1/2 an inch, H. Robinson.
Well done, here.
Second prize with a deviation of 5/8 of an inch, R. Dye. Third prize with a deviation of 3/4 of an inch, B. Lambert. Class 2 amateurs and ladies. No cut, David. First prize with a deviation of 1 5/8 of an inch, S. Holder. Second prize with a deviation of 5 1/2 inches, J. Brooks.
Well done.
Third prize with a deviation of 8 inches, Tazzini. We have a phone number, so presumably they've gone. Right. The total heat shield for the straightest furrow of the day goes to R. Dive with the deviation of 3/8 Now we come to the produce show. Right.
Which one do you want?
We don't want one yet, Dave.
We don't.
Give all the money out first,
Oh.
then give the cups afterwards. Class 1 milling wheat. First, cycle trees.
He's here.
Oh, Morris is over this way.
Thank you very much, Mary.
And second, J. Elliott.
Well done, John.
Class 2 feeding wheat. First, Assington Park Farms.
Get it, John?
Well done, John.
Second, Cycle Trees Limited.
Doyle.
Where's the...
Class 3 malting barley. First prize, R. Kemble.
Well done, Robert.
Second prize, J. Elliott. Class 4 feeding barley. First prize, L. Campen. There was no second prize awarded. Class 6 oats. First prize, C. Morphew. No second prize awarded. Class 6 peas. First, J. Cracknell and Sons. Second, Cycle Tree Limited.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Class 7, Spring or Winter Beans. First prize, Assington Park Farms.
Richard. Well done, John.
Second prize, Cycle Tree Limited.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Class 8 chick beans, there were no entries. Class 9 oilseed rape. First prize, D. Taylor Bulls. Second prize, Cycle Tree Limited.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Class 10 linseed. First prize, Cycle Tree Limited. No second prize awarded. Class 11 sugar beet. First prize, J. Cracknell and Sons. No second prize awarded. Class 12 potatoes red. First, P. Salmon. Second, C. Pratt.
Well done,
Class 13 potatoes white. First, P. Salmon. No second prize awarded. Class 14 onions globed. First, P. Salmon.
Stop there, Paul, don't go.
No second prize awarded. Class 15 onions flat. First, P. Salmon.
Well done.
Second, C. Frag.
Well done.
Last 16, collection of garden produce. First, P. Salmon. Second, A.J. Warner. The WA Church Challenge Cup for the best points in classes 1 to 11, Cycle Tree Limited.
Very much, Mary.
The ECF Cereal Shield for the most points in classes 1 to 5, Cycle Tree Limited.
Very much, Mary.
The Bures Agricultural Club 40th Anniversary Cup for the most points in classes 12 to 16, P. Salmon.
Well done. Yeah, sorry about that, but Marie has just presented Mary with a superb dried flowers arrangement, and thank you very much indeed, Marie. And thank you once again, Mary, for the presentation. I've got some notes somewhere, if you'll hang on a moment.
5 us or?
Take a jacket off.
Ah, Lewis took an eagle, Bob.
Yes, names I've got to thank. There was Fred, Bill, Tom and all the rest of them. But I've lost me list, so I will have to try and remember. But anyway, sincere thanks to all the demonstrators and the exhibitors for their help. Sincere thanks to all the stewards for everything they've done. Sincere thanks to all the young ladies in the refreshment tent for all the work they've done. And what can I say? All the people, I thank you sincerely for coming today, and sorry about the weather. There's so many names I could mention, but we mustn't go on any longer. It's very kind of you to come. I really appreciate for everything you've done. Probably sincere thanks to our Chief Steward, John Ingram, and our show day secretary, Richard, with the help of his good lady wife, Linda. If it wasn't for those two, this would be a poor old show, I can assure you. But there's sincere thanks to them. But I suppose the most grateful thanks go to our host, Lewis and Mary Campen. So would you all show your appreciation for everything they've done for us? And Richard, is there anything else?
Don't think so, David.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there's something else.
Pauline wants you to flog off the food that's left.
There's some food to be sold if anybody wants some food.
Cakes and sandwiches.
There's coconuts as well.
And there's a few coconuts for sale if anybody wants a few coconuts. But if I forgotten anyone, thank you very much indeed for all you've done.